Hi, remember when I said a while ago that things were expected to heat up in Egypt and I was being all hush hush about it? Because I'm getting tired of this series and things are expected to get spicy in the near future for Egypt, and I want to be completely free to cover that as it happens. Well, nothing ended up happening and seems like it's not gonna for at least a while. So let me explain what was anticipated and why I was being quiet about it. Basically, in case you couldn't tell, Egypt is a third world country. And what is something third world countries usually have, at least in some capacity? Dictatorship. And dictatorship usually means that the country's overall condition is runny dog shit, to say the least. And since you're watching my channel right now, I'm going to assume you follow Egypt news to some extent, so you must have heard of the 27th Conference of the Parties, or COP27 as she prefers to be called. Egypt hosted that conference this year, and it was held in Sharm el-Sheikh. And yes, we hosted a multi-million-dollar conference during an all-time economical low, but also we are building a fucking mega city one during the same crisis, so why the fuck not at this point? However, I digress, since questioning Egyptian economics is bad for your health. Mommy, you're just hosting some shitty conference, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal that this conference meant a bunch of important people and world leaders would be present here, including
Biden
himself. So some of the people decided to protest during that conference, particularly on the day
Biden
was to be here, the 11th, which happened to be a nice name for the date as well. 11/11? Iconic. People started calling for action online, and more people were starting to hop on the train and record videos of themselves in the streets saying they will be coming out to protest on the 11th. But why then? Why not any other time? It's been shitty for years now. Well, you see, Egyptian authority is more or less bad at receiving criticism, and a little too trigger happy.
Yes, if you can hear me, Rida, what you're seeing right now is that the military police is actually moving into Tahrir Square with force, and they are trying to clear the square. This all happening just literally in the last 2 minutes or so. They are firing tear gas canisters at the protesters and up into the air, and people are running in all sorts of different directions.
Keep in mind that this was during a time the military was not in charge of everything, so it's safe to assume that things would only be more violent and bloody if it was to happen now. However, the presence of such important people would not let the system get violent, and it would also make doubly sure that the message is globally received. Now, let's talk about the anticipation. All the aforementioned stuff made tensions pretty damn high around the country. Cops were patrolling like crazy all day. They had SWAT teams come out to guard police stations and act as some kind of show of force. They started searching people randomly in the streets, going through their phones to see if they're in on it, and arresting some people in the process, actually. Which is why I was keeping quiet. I didn't want to end up being arrested. And as it got closer and closer, some skirmishes started taking place too, one of which I posted about a while ago, being really cryptic and ominous. Homeboy here threw a Molotov in the parked police van and then at them. In a panic, they stumbled around and tried to detain him and eventually shot and killed him. Well, this is awkward. Come 11/11 and nobody went anywhere. The country felt like it was on pause, and the government had key areas where people could group up and protest evacuated and guarded fiercely. The day passed without incident, and then the next and the next until the conference concluded and everyone went home. Let's address the elephant in the room. Why? Don't people hate the way things are? Yes, the majority does. Of course, you have some asshats who are in denial or just plain ma'asin who still kiss ass. But those are not that many. The real reason nobody went out is fear. We're all living in constant fear and anxiety. Fear of authority, of violence, of getting unrightfully detained, tortured and/or killed for expressing your opinions, which does and will happen if they deem you to be enough of a threat. We've been living in constant anxiety over the future. What's the next bad decision gonna be? What else will we have to endure due to the bad and corrupt leadership? Will we even have food the next month? And so the opportunity passed. Who knows when will the next one be, if there is gonna be one. I still think it will collapse eventually. It's inevitable if we stay on this course. This was just a chance to do it smoothly and cleanly. By the way, COP27 itself ain't shit. Like many other similar cons of this type, it didn't do much towards its intended goal, which was climate change. I mean, you have a bunch of crusty old people in suits riding their private jets to shake hands, LARP for a bit, and tell you about climate change and how you should drive your car less often. Asses were kissed, dicks were sucked, money was wasted, yada yada yada, overall clown shit, honestly. However, let's look at the other things it did unintentionally achieve. It ended up being more of an exposition about Egypt's questionable politics and questionable, well, everything really. A commonly discussed issue is how oppressive the system is and how freedom of speech is repressed and opposition is always punished. There are tons of political prisoners here, but the absolute highest profile one has to be currently Alaa Abdel Fattah, a British Egyptian activist who is currently on a food strike, or was. I'm not sure if he still is. Until he either gets released or dies of it. The intercept wrote about him, the most repressive regime in history of the modern Egyptian state, headed by a general who seized power in a military coup in 2013 and has held on to it through sham elections ever since. Egypt's rulers are on particularly high alert because of the Iranian uprising, fearing that, like the Arab Spring in 2011, which left across borders, toppling regimes, this moment of spiraling living costs could prove equally volatile. Alaa's words have been quoted in several speeches from the floor. His sister Sanat Seif attended the summit's first week and was surrounded by a press gaggle everywhere she went. And young delegates have been seen wearing #FreeAlaa t-shirts. On November 10, many delegates wore white, the color worn by Egypt's prison inmates, and raised banners that said, "No climate justice without human rights. We have not yet been defeated." An invocation of Alaa Abdel Fattah's book, published earlier this year, "You have not yet been defeated." This has prompted the regime to respond with highly orchestrated, heavy-handed counter demonstrations of its own, which is true, and they even dragged a few celebs along for it to post about it on social media. The Egyptian government does this a lot online too, having fake accounts post pro-regime copy-pastas with slight variations so it looks less obviously orchestrated. Pretty pathetic. The intense focus on Alaa's case is taking place because the writer and technologist behind bars for most of the past decade chose to intensify his hunger strike to include a water strike, timed with the first day of the summit. In doing so, he was attempting to force the regime to choose between two options: free him and let him emigrate to the UK, he's a dual citizen, or let him die in the middle of the highest profile international event to take place in Egypt under Sisi's rule. It is worth recalling that the uprising that is still raging in Iran was sparked by the death in custody of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini. A bunch of other shit happened, but as far as I know, he's still locked up, but has been forcefully medicated and rejuvenated, and there are many more like him too. Basically all the icons from 2011 either escaped Egypt and live abroad safely now, or are here, in prison, to this day. And this whole fiasco revealed to the outside world how oppressive the system is and how little human rights mean here. Speaking of which, Human Rights Watch said they're concerned the system might retaliate against opposition after the conference is up and we're alone with them. So after initially scripting this video, right before shooting this, I stumbled across news that 12 human rights organizations backed up the EU Parliament's demands to Egypt about human rights violations, which I didn't even know the EU was doing, so yeah, we got exposed big time. I'm injecting this bit in last minute into the script, and now back to the video. What will become of all this mess is yet to be determined. There are sketchy measures being rumored and we are still going downhill fast, so who knows what will happen and when. I'll try to keep you all updated, I guess. Also, that was a fucking mess. So with a conference of this scale, you would think that we would at least get a spike in tourism, right? This was a golden chance for us to look good and lure some suckers in. But in typical Egyptian fashion, we done fucked it up. Let's go through some of the wonderful things that transpired, shall we? The British Guardian wrote that delegates complained about shortage of food and drinks during their stay in Sharm. I would like to add that shit costs ridiculous amounts too. I've heard some weird shit like 150 Egyptian pounds, bottles of water, or 200 Egyptian pound sandwiches. This ain't much, of course, for non-Egyptians, but that is still pretty ridiculous, especially considering how shitty the quality of everything here is. I mean, I receive $10. You receive acute food poisoning. They also put words in the United Nations Secretary General's mouth, some shit about the conference being a blazing success. Wait, I probably shouldn't say blazing since it's about climate change. A massive success. Now, either this news piece is fake, or the other one saying he said it was an ultimate failure is fake. Try your own conclusion. Another funny thing that happened here is that there was a sewer backflow during the conference. Egyptians, of course, we're used to such things, so they just made steps over the water with bricks, but boy were the visitors shocked. I guess the world leaders visiting were so full of shit that our sewage infrastructure just couldn't handle it, huh? Another thing that happened was that the German pavilion was getting spied on after getting involved with Alaa's sister, the guy I mentioned earlier. The United Nations spoke about it even. Again, this is normal for us, we're used to having someone looking down our pants, but first worlders have the freedom to object, so by all fucking means let them. On our behalf, if anything. And this seemed to be a pretty big deal actually. I saw multiple news sources write about it, foreign and Egyptian. Some ambassador also came out with a massive dick in his mouth, saying that he received no complaints from attendees whatsoever and only gotten praise. Sure buddy, I bet they love playing the florist shit water while holding on to their $10 diarrhea bar of a sandwich. And of course, fake news of massive profits from the conference were made. How can you even make this much money from something like this is beyond me, but regardless, apparently we made zillions of dollars from it. You would think our economy would at least smile a little bit if this was true, huh? Well, the main internet/landline company in Egypt laid over more than 1,200 workers during the same period to save costs. Again, draw your own conclusions whether the economy is actually refreshed or not. John Kerry also caught COVID, apparently, which I thought we officially eradicated. Such a mystery. And unrelated to the conference, this happened during the same time phase, in case our touristic reputation was still breathing. Homegirl was escorted by police to put a bra on, and obviously had her phone searched and cleansed of godless photos. Boobs are terrifying though, come on. I would definitely hate to see or touch some. It would be a tragedy if someone ever sent me a photo of such monstrous things. What else? Oh yeah, conclusion. Well, I don't fucking know anymore. I got a lot of entertainment reading about the shit show that was going down, and first worlders' reactions are always priceless to me. I always picture this meme when it happens. Other than that, 11/11 will not be going down in history books, sadly. The other date with 11 in it will remain lonely. If and when it collapses here, assuming I haven't mysteriously disappeared after this video, gotten cancelled over something else, or otherwise, by that time, I shall report on it as best as I can. Also, I want to thank Mr. Jordan Robertson for the coffee. You, sir, are based. If you too want to be based and get a shout out like this one, you can by supporting us on Buy Me a Coffee. It takes only a minute and no sign up is required. The link is in the description and channel bio. All that being said, I love you all so much, and until next time, take care.